Hi, this is Don Devilac. You've reached the second video in the series You Already Have a Product. And what we're talking about manufacturing and what are the corrective measures you can take in manufacturing to make sure that your product is really ready to go. As I mentioned this, you already have a product series. Our next series is on turbo sales, or how to get your sales going as fast as possible into the marketplace, jumpstarting your sales. This is really about taking a look at your manufacturing, taking a look at exactly how it's set up, and do you have all of your ducks in a row so that you're really ready to proceed into the marketplace. Now, the first thing you want to do is you want to list your issues, and this is sort of a table of contents of what's coming up in the video. It's your list your issues if you're going for straight production, and straight production is where you just hire you either make the product yourself, you hire a manufacturer to make the product for yourself, and you pay him, although they may give you some terms. Turbo outsourcing is where you actually turn the manufacturing over to company lock, stock, and barrel in return for them taking a share of the profits. And this way, if there's tooling costs and all of these other costs along the line, you're not responsible, nor are you responsible for manufacturing. But then the manufacturer, in effect, takes part of your profits. So instead of maybe you making 40 or 50% margin, you might only make 25% margin. But then again, the risks are off of you and onto the manufacturer. You want to take a look at your issues regarding cost and cash flow, also quality, fit and finish. A lot of times, inventors really fall by the wayside, especially when they work overseas, when they don't really define the quality they want. They don't know how to check on the quality, and they end up getting products that they can't sell. Another issue is turnaround time as far as volumes. A lot of times when you're getting going in the marketplace, if you're getting a big customer and you're starting to pick up a demand, the manufacturer all of a sudden tells you he can't make it that fast, and all of a sudden you're in a pickle because your customer wants the product and your manufacturer can't deliver. And tooling costs can be a big bugaboo for a lot of products because it's not unusual for a tooling cost to range anywhere from $20,000 to $80,000, and a lot of times the inventors really don't have that kind of money to put up, which is another reason turbo outsourcing is an option if you can get a manufacturer to do it. Now, straight production, this is where you just have a manufacturer, you have a manufacturing plan worked out, and what you're looking for now is really kind of three phases of production. Your initial sales, so when we're going to start selling, making a beachhead, we're not going to sell that much. So what we're going to be concerned about is not investing too much money in tooling and things, and instead of going temporary tooling and going with a lower overall cost in order to our upfront cost, even if you have to take a higher per piece price into the initial sales period, because you want to preserve your money and you want to leave the option open that you might have to make changes. So you want to work with your manufacturer. How is he going to handle this initial sales? How are you going to handle it? Can you afford the money? Is there a way with this manufacturer to work out a plan where you can actually make these small initial sales without putting out too much upfront capital? Intermediate sales, this is another issue. Now you're selling more, but you're still not selling really that much. You might be selling $200,000 or $300,000 or $400,000 a year as you're ramping up in the your first sales efforts, and you really want to take a look there is what are the upfront costs to do that? What is my capital requirements? How much money am I actually going to make money on? And you want to work with your manufacturer. So the way you're handling intermediate sales, you at least are breaking even. In the initial sales period, if your production costs are a little bit higher or equal to your sales cost, well, that's not so bad. You're just getting a beachhead and kind of proving the product will sell. But in the intermediate sales, you know your price. You got to make sure that the manufacturing price you're getting gives you a chance to maybe make 10 or 15% profit. When you go to long-term sales, again, you're upping the ante on the same issues. Now you all of a sudden want to make 30 to 40% on your sales. You want to see that your manufacturer has a way to do that, that you have your production in line so that you can get, a fair return for all your time and energy. If you don't have that, you're really going to struggle, and you're going to end up spending all this time, money, and effort on your invention and really not making money. You want to be taking a relook at your production method. Now you're getting ready to start out. A lot of times inventors stumble into a production method that maybe is not cost effective, or is maybe not giving the fit and finish they need, or it's not providing the reliability and the quality they want. Here, take a hard look at your product and say, is this really a product going to the market that I'm really proud of? Again, this is a area where you might want to go back and meet with your SCORE counselor, which is www.score.org. These are retired executives. It's a program of the Small Business Administration to provide mentors for young companies. And go back and see them and have somebody over there who really understands production review where you are and how your production is coming out, how they feel it could be improved, and what steps it really needs to actually be market ready. You want to work with your manufacturer too to make sure your packaging is correct. Do you have all the packaging? So, first of all, it's a safe, reliable package that keeps the product from breaking. This is not really an issue about, you're actually designing graphics on the package, but is the product designed so it won't break? Is the package cost reasonable? I mean, if you have the package cost as being 30 or 40% of the product cost, you've got a severe problem. So you want to really take a look at your packaging, how reliable it is, and what percentage of its cost of your product it takes, and is at a reasonable cost. You also have to take a double check here if you're going into some market where you require certifications like UL approval or NSF approval, which is like for swimming pool products, or any certifications required on your product, and do you have those in place? And you want to also take a look at product markings. For example, it's an issue that you should have your patents marked on the product. Sometimes you might have a copyright marked on the product. Sometimes you need to have certified by so-and-so or other people marked on the product. So you want to just double check that everything's in place as far as your certifications and product markings. Now, some of the issues that you have come up but these are solutions that you really want to look at. Do you have the right size manufacturer for you? You want to have the potential to add 10% volume to the manufacturer's production capacity. This is because manufacturers really make a lot more money when they raise their production capacity, because that allows their overall overhead rate to go down. So when you're adding 10% production capacity to a manufacturer, you're not only making money on your product, you're helping him make more money on all of his other production. But this really only becomes a big factor if you're adding a significant amount of production capacity, and I find about 10% is the minimum. So if you have a variety of manufacturers, and like one manufacturer, you're only 2%, you only offer 2% increase in production capacity, you're not going to get much from him as far as favorable terms or investments or amortized tooling, because you don't really represent that big of a profit increase to him. But once you get around that 10%, all of a sudden the manufacturer is going to want your business in a big way, and they're going to be willing to make some deals with you. This is about creative enough. All these production new products have little issues that come up, and manufacturers are creative, find ways around those issues, find way to modify tooling, find ways how to get the product out really without spending a lot more money on investments. So in the manufacturing engineering department or model making department, you really want all of them to be on board to help you with their creativity. When I go see a manufacturer, I like to go and see their model building department. How are they building models? Usually these are the people, along with the engineers, but I find model makers more than engineers are really the people who come up with the creative solutions for the company. So you want to see what they're like, see how they are, let them show you some of their things they've done to really improve production. Usually the model makers are more than thrilled to tell you everything they've done, and you get a better sense for how creative the manufacturing is. You want to look at too at the manufacturing process and your product, and is it flexible enough? Again, this is something that the score people can help you with. So if it's a rigid production process, they can't make changes or modifications. So if you find that you need to make this little change to the product, you don't want to go back to your manufacturer and find out that that's just impossible for them. You want to make sure they have some flexibility. And again, that model maker or that engineering staff, have them go over some of the things that they've done. This will give you a better sense of how flexible they are. And of course, you want this manufacturers, just because you're going to raise their production capacity and they're really going to make a lot more money, none of that really matters if they don't have the financial capacity to assist you. So you want to take a look and see, do they have the capacity to really help me move forward? Turbo outsourcing, what is that? Well, when we're talking about straight production, we're talking about working with the manufacturer, maybe getting favorable terms, maybe getting amortized tooling. But basically, what you're doing is treating them as a contract manufacturer where you're paying them X amount for them to make money. Now, in turbo outsourcing, we're not doing that. We're actually turning the production over to the company, and we're turning it over for a certain percent of the profit, or a certain percent of the sales dollars, or a certain percent that's over and above what they get in a contract manufacturing arrangement. So typically in a contract manufacturer, they only get a 10 or 15% profit margin, maybe 20%, and that can still be very beneficial if you have 10% production capacity utilization. But in turbo outsourcing, you're saying, here's my product, you're in charge of making it, coming up with solutions, putting up the money to make it, buying the tooling, doing everything, and in return for that, I'll give you that 20% profit, plus maybe I'll give you another 8% profit. So what happens is, instead of you making, let's say, 40% gross margin on the product, you're going to make 30% gross margin on the product, and the manufacturer's going to take 10% of that. And what's going to happen then is they're going to take care of all the headaches for manufacturing. It's a good deal for inventors, but you've really got to prove that you can really come through. It's a much better deal for manufacturers who might want to license a product if they don't have sales capability and the ability to take it out to market. And you've really shown that you have those sales capability. But what you want to do before you turbo outsource, you got to make sure that that manufacturer really has the capabilities. And one is design and engineering and prototypes. I mean, basically, that's where you're hiring them or giving them the outsourcing because you don't have the capability of doing that. Manufacturing, inventors often know how to sell the product, often know how to make a product, but when it comes to designing and engineering product for large-scale production, most of the time they don't know how to do that. So it's a real advantage to have a manufacturer on turbo outsourcing who can do that for you. You want to make sure on the tooling costs. You don't want them coming back to you and paying for tooling, and you want them to be a kind of a collaborator with you in your product research and market testing and working on low-cost tooling, because that's an advantage for them in like the low production phases until you really have locked in on your final product design. You need them to support you on raw materials. They're going to buy the raw materials now instead of you. And often you'll have to see if they'll support you on the terms. Now, what terms are is just how soon you pay them. So if they ship you a product and you are supposed to pay them in 30 days, but these are really large orders, or you have problems getting the collection for 45 days, you want to be able to talk to the turbo outsourcer, and you want to be sure that they'll kind of absorb at least most of the risk, if not all the risk for you. And in that way, you know how you're going forward. I mean, you've got to constantly watch that you have a good relationship with your manufacturer so that when a big order comes in, you're not worried about running to a bank to get money, but you can actually talk to your manufacturer, whether it's straight manufacturing or outsourced manufacturer, and see if they'll work with you to get that order out. Because getting that order out doesn't only benefit you, it also benefits the manufacturer. So what are the solutions when you're looking at turbo outsourcing problems? So Again, this is the right manufacturer, size, funding, willingness to work with you, really anxious to get your business and get that extra production, and they're willing to absorb upfront cost in return for a higher margin. If you're not getting good luck with them, it's more than likely rests right on you that you're not making a convincing case for your product success. Again, if you go back to some of the other videos in the not in this series, but in previous series, we talk a lot about how to make an investor presentation, how to get networking support, how to get beachhead support or showing that the product will sell. Another thing that's really important for a turbo outsourcing is to really have a good benchmark sales strategy. So you're going to come to the manufacturer and you're going to say, well, you do this. Okay, now the risk is small in benchmark. They're not going to have that high a cost. They're not going to really invest that much money to produce a small volume of product for you to get in the marketplace. This is one of the advantage of a manufacturer turbo outsourcing is you're going to provide him steps to prove you really can sell the product without him spending much money. So being able to show a really strong benchmark sales strategy, and we talked about this quite a bit in the last video series, going forward, are ready to start sales. And if you go back there and look at some of those videos, you'll see a video on benchmarking. So get that benchmarking strategy, show how you can put it out, show how much you're going to sell, and show how much it's going to cost to produce that. And usually the turbo outsource manufacturer will take interest in that because you're offering him a very low cost way for him to really see that this strategy is going to work. Again, as I've said really throughout all the videos, having industry insiders or sales agreements with people in the marketplace really help you all the way along when you're dealing with manufacturers, but they're really key in outsourcing because you're asking the manufacturer to pick up all the cost. The other thing you got to look at, and this is you're going to find manufacturers are very strict about this, is that they want your final end user price to be 4 to 5 times the manufacturing cost. If you're going to go into any manufacturer and try to get money and you're only 3 times the manufacturing cost, no manufacturer is really going to jump on board because they know that's just not enough profit margin for anyone to make money. So now we're looking at costs. So we're going to see, are all of our costs in line so we're really ready to go ahead, or do we have to drop back and make some changes? So we need to know our costs in all the production cycles, which is the low volume production, which is the benchmarking, your mid-range production or intermediate production when you're just starting out, and of course your large-scale production. So you really need to, break even. If you break even on the benchmarking, you're okay. If you're making 10 to 15% profit in the interim, that's okay as long as you can show that once you get up to full production, you're making 40 to 50% margin. If your costs are out of line, you might not have the right process or the right tooling, and this is going back to go to SCORE, get a mentor who knows about manufacturing and really can help you out. Now, if your costs are high and you're really kind of more at risk and you don't have enough volume or enough money to put up the upfront money to really get the program going, take a look and go back into the outsourcing and try to find a manufacturer who will pick that up for you. They, if you can find the right manufacturer in the right situation where they really need production capacity, that's really a plus. You can also, this goes into low volume production and intermediate production where the volumes aren't very high. Assembly costs can be very high. Anything where you have people doing manual work is very high, and I consider bringing that assembly, in-house and do it yourself, with hire a few people because it'll be a much lower cost than you get from a manufacturer. Cash flow. Now, cash flow can be a crisis almost for inventors because it takes so long to get paid. If it's very common for a person when they pay for raw materials or they pay for labor that it takes 2 months to get through production. takes another month, it sits on the shelf before you sell it, and then you get it out there, and then you don't get paid for 45 days. So you're looking at roughly 6 months to spend money and collect money. Now, if you're just increasing sales all the time and you keep waiting to collect money, you're going to have a cash problem. This is one of the reasons we like turbo outsourcing, because you're only paying that turbo outsource manufacturer on terms from when it's ready to ship, versus if you're doing the manufacturing yourself and you have a straight manufacturing deal, you're actually paying for the labor and raw materials when it occurs. So you're really, kind of in a pickle. And do you have, so you want to look, how can I deal with this if I don't have enough cash? Some people, what they do is factor. Now, what factor does is means that I take my receivables and I sell them to a factoring company, which will usually give me 92% of the invoice value. So, for example, if I sell to a chain of bicycle shops and my invoice is for 100,000, and I know I'm going to wait 45 to 60 days to get paid, and I can't afford to do that, what I'm going to do instead is sell the receivable to a factoring company, and they'll give me, instead of like say the invoice is 100,000, they'll give me 92,000 for my invoice in return for getting the money right away. This is not a great deal for inventors because that 8% is a lot of money. But on the other hand, if you don't have enough money for your cash flow, you might have to consider doing it. Another thing that you can try to do, and it again goes back to the case, do you have a manufacturer who needs you, and have you proved your product will sell? It's amortized tooling cost. What this means is that the manufacturer picks up all the tooling cost and then charges you X amount for every product you sell. So maybe they pay for the tooling and you get charged an extra 10 cents for every product you sell for the manufacturer picking up the amortized costs. Now, one of the catches in this, say the tooling is 80%, you might have to pay amortized tooling costs up to $100,000 or even $120,000 before you don't pay it. So it's not, again, the most advantageous thing for an inventor to do, but on the other hand, it's important to do that if your tooling costs are very high. Again, look at how important you are to the manufacturer. Make sure you're important so that you can really get a good deal. You have to look really to how well the manufacturer's finance. Maybe you're offering him a gold mine deal, but maybe he just doesn't have any money, or he or she, to actually come forward and finance you. And make sure you give the manufacturer extra opportunities to win. Give them a chance for turbo outsourcing where he can get a bigger percentage. Give them a chance to invest in the company. And then finally, if you're not getting good deals from your manufacturer, you got to really ask, does he believe in your product, or doesn't he have any money? Quality. Now, quality, this is kind of involved. Some manufacturers just are much better at quality. They have much better fit and finish. They pay a lot more attention to quality, and you want that manufacturer. Other times you just don't have the right process. Maybe that manufacturer is doing everything he can for the quality with his production process, but really to upgrade the quality, you're going to need to go to another production process. So again, SCORE can help you with this. You want to be looking at inspections. It's not a good idea to go with a manufacturer who has to inspect everything he does like 2 or 3 times to make sure he's making your spec. You want him to have a production process that can produce the quality product right away. Otherwise, you're just going to have too much cost. You want to look at the manufacturer and what he's done, or what he's willing to say will be the scrap rate of products you get, and who's going to pay for the scrap rate. I mean, everybody expects 2 to 3 to 4% scrap, but it's not unusual for scrap to go up to 10 to 20%. And you really want to talk to the manufacturer and see how flexible he is on working out scrap products. You want your specification. to push the quality problems on the manufacturer. You want the specification to really be clear on what the manufacturer has to deliver to you so you have a product that's high quality. The scrap rate I talked about before, most often that happens when you don't have a tight specification and the manufacturer ships you products and they say they're on spec and you say, no, I can't sell them. Well, this comes down to you really putting their specification in place. And just your standard inspection routing. You should really have a deal with the manufacturer that you are allowed to go in every 6 months and kind of um, inspect his facility, inspect his inspection techniques, and look at the quality that they're coming up with. Turnaround time. Well, this again is what can the manufacturer do on a turnaround on a big order. Now, inventors really don't know what their strategy is going to be and how many big orders they might get at once. But if you go back and you looked at going forward and you were looking at the getting the right salespeople and setting up your sales targets, you're going to have some sales targets that are large. So you need to pick out some volumes that one of your bigger customers might take and see, can this manufacturer really turn that around? Can he produce it? I mean, if you don't want to be spending all your time with the manufacturer and all of a sudden get a big order and find out he can't deliver it. So find out the flexibility he has, find out how much extra capacity he has, find out how his own products, so the manufacturer has products of his own that he's selling, how are those products doing in the marketplace? Does it have a large volume coming up? And see if you can work out just how to proceed there with the volume that he has. Sometimes the manufacturer needs an investment required to add flexibility for you. You want to find out, can he make the investment? What does he have to buy to give you that flexibility? And how long does it take that equipment to get in there? You want to understand this, so you want your sales strategy to really match what you can do. And if there are some time delays, make sure you put that in and don't go after the real big customers right away. And again, it's the funding. Do they have the funding for a big order? You're going to have to come up with the money. You just want to know this up front so that you can plan for it. In the last section going forward, we talked about raising money and how to structure your business so that you can sell shares. Go back to that video. It's video number 8 in the series on going forward, preparing for sales. But make sure that you have that lined out if your manufacturer can't take care of that. Tooling cost. This is really an area where a lot of inventors run into trouble, because what happens is often you can get one tool, let's say for $20,000, which might produce products for you that has a certain level of quality and fit and finish, or you can produce a tooling for $60,000 and you get a high quality product every time. Of course, you want to save the $40,000 and we want to hope for the best that the product will come out. But you really need to go back, and again, SCORE can help you. Have you really explored all the low-cost tooling options? The manufacturer is going to want you to pay for the higher tooling because there's less risk for him. He's going to get a quality product. He doesn't want to have you buy a less tool and all of a sudden have some of the product not meet the specifications and have this scrap dilemma. But you really want to know that you've explored the option. You just didn't accept that higher price of tooling when really a lower price could be better. Again, SCORE mentors could help you here. You want to understand your lead time for tooling. So typically lead time for tooling is 3 or 4 months. So as you're going out and getting ready to sell, you've got to understand what is the tooling cost or time I'm going to have.